Hey guys, and welcome to our next part of setting up Final IK with mirror networking. Hopefully with the first part you guys got a basic understanding of how the tracking works. In this one I'm going to get as far as I can. We're going to do some refactoring now that you understand how the players spawned, and we're going to set up our local rig and start networking some variables. And hopefully if we get time we'll be able to network the hands in this, but we'll see how long the video goes. Okay, so where we left off before, if you hit play, you should be able to hit host, which I've done some changes, but you'll be spawning in this player. She looks kind of weird right now, but anyway, we'll fix that. Let's go into our scripts and go into our hardware scripts, and let's grab our hardware rig. Let's pull that up. And let's go ahead and go into our rig scripts, find our network rig. Oh, wrong one. Find our network rig wherever he's hiding. Okay. So let's refactor this and simplify this. This is long-handed so that you guys got an understanding of how the rig tracks when it populates in. So how do we make this a little more easy and simplified? Well, let's take all this and delete it. Let's turn this into a static instance. So let's say public static hardware rig instance. And down here let's do a void start. Let's just say instance equals this. I won't go down to the path of statics too much, but basically you'd only ever want to do this if there's only ever going to be one instance in the scene. In our case there's only ever going to be one hardware rig, so it's going to make it easy to find. Let's click save. That's all we got to do here. Let's come over to our network rig, and then we're going to say if is let's just change this too. We're going to get rid of this, and then we're going to say if is owned say hardware rig equals hardware rig dot instance, and that'll find it for us. Okay. And let's go ahead and do this. Let's say if it's not owned, return. I could type this morning. Okay, so what's going to happen is when this boots up, if you don't own it, it's just going to return. It's not going to find this, and it's just going to say if we own it, find the instance of hardware rig, which is going to be local. So down here, let's say hardware rig dot what did I call them? Yeah, so we'll say, which one is this? Left hand dot transform dot position, and this one will be left hand dot transform dot rotation, and this one will be right hand dot transform dot position. Same thing here. Transform dot rotation. Okay. Then instead of saying if null, we'll say matter of fact, let's just switch that around a little bit. Let's say I'm doing this by the seat of my pants, so let's just say how do I want to do that? Yeah, so down here in late update, let's do this. Let's say, oops, since we're going to be doing multiple things, let's simplify this. Let's say if is owned, oops, right? And let's say, let's come down here and make a new function. Let's just say void update rig transforms. Let's do that. We'll take this, we'll put this up here, and then we'll take this, put this in here, and then we'll delete this. So if we own it, we're going to update our position, our rotations to match the hardware rig. So now let's go over to a refactor there. That's greatly simplified. So now let's go back into Unity. Let's find our prefab for our player. Let's bring them in here. Okay, so for our head target, let's go ahead and zero it out. And then same thing for our, oh, that's why I deleted that target. If you didn't follow me and deleted something, or if I did that while I was messing around in here, I don't know. But let's, in fact, we can get rid of all of this. Let's just delete that, delete that, delete that, and delete that. We've got our head target under our left hand. Yeah, create an empty. Call this left. I think when I was deleting the hands out of there from that other video, I accidentally deleted it. That's all right. Okay, so if you did that, come back over here to our network rig. Make sure we've got our assignments. Okay, so we're going to switch this around, and how I got this set up. Okay. It's actually fine. If we run into problems, we'll come back to it. So let's just go ahead and get rid of these targets. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. So now we should just be targeting those. Okay. Let's leave this on here for now, and let's see what we've got. We should have some messed up rotations here. Let's see. Yeah, he's all out of whack. Okay, so let's go up to our player controller, and on our center eye anchor, let's add a new target. It's prefab, not prefab, but create an empty, and we'll call this network. Let's call it head target. Okay. And under here, let's come down to our left models. Let's go ahead and enable these. And underneath our models, let's go ahead and create a, let's go ahead and enable these. Since we're in here, enable your grabber, enable your remote grabber, enable your grabber here if they're disabled. Sometimes I get a little squirrely, but I want to make sure you're in the same spot as I am. So under your model's left, let's add a new target. Create an empty. We'll call this our IK left hand target, which is great. Cool. And under models here, let's create an empty, we'll call this IK right hand target. Okay, so now we have one for our head, we have one for our left hand, we have one for our right hand. Let's go into our anchor, let's get rid of hardware head, remove this component. Let's come down to, I think they're on the controllers. Remove that, and remove, where is it? Right here. Removed our hardware hand off of that. Let's come into our head target. Let's add hardware head. Our left hand target, we'll add our hardware hand, and then our right hand will add our hardware hand. These are just identifier scripts. You could also use the transform, but these are here because sometimes you might want to use them for something. So that's just the way I do it. You could just as easily use the transforms in your hardware script. So now let's come back up to our player controller. You see now these are missing, so let's grab our left hand, which is here. Let's grab our right hand, which is here, and then our head, so that's here. Now, where is my rig? Oh, let's go ahead and we have to apply our overrides. Apply all. Okay. So now, delete him out. I'll save and then play. Get an error. Oh. This is what I get for doing two things at once. On our network rig, should have removed these before. If you were following the hands only for the hand animation, we can get rid of these hand animators. Remove component, because we're no longer doing that. Coincidentally, I'm probably not going to hit back on the hands only. There's been a lot more interest in the full body in networking, so that's pretty much what I'm going to concentrate on. I just don't have time to do both. But you should get quite a bit of info out of this. What we got now? See, hardware rig, left hand, right hand, head. There we are. Okay, so now let's open up our rig. Let's come down to here. Open up our IK. Now we have to reassign our targets. So let's do the head. And where are my arms? Left arm, left hand, and right arm, right hand. File, save. Let's see if it's tracking now. Okay, so back into our script. Let's go into network rig. I made a typo here. Head transform.SetPositionRotation should be hardware rig dot head dot transform dot position. Headset dot transform dot rotation. Make sure I got that right. Hardware rig for position. Left hand, right hand, head. Okay. Let's see if it's on track now. Okay, so now we've got our tracking. So if I come up to my rig, if I come down to my head, you can see my network rig is now tracking. So now let's go to our hand, check that. Yeah. Our right hand. Cool. So now let's line up our hands. So let's first figure out why these are not animating. I'm sure it's something I did. Oh yeah, it's because these are disabled. Let's go ahead. Let's see if those hands are working now. Okay, yeah. So now, make our life easier. If you leave your black hands on, you can now come in and you can line up these targets. So let's go ahead and grab our rotation. Boop, boop, and then pull it back. Try to line up the wrist. I usually try to go with this finger and this kind of part here. This is the part that you want to get right, because if you're using the weapons from B&G and stuff like that, it's just going to make lining everything up and making it look right with your avatar hands a heck of a lot easier. I'm not going to spend too much time, but it's basically just trying to get lined up as best you can. In my other videos, I actually show you shortcuts for this, but for now, I'm just going to want to rough them in. Okay, so once you've got it, copy, component, hit stop, paste, component values. Now, let's hit play again and line the other one up. Let's come down to our right IK target. Coincidentally, this setup is pretty much identical across all the videos I've done for setting up Final IK in single player, so if you've been following along with those, you should have several ways to do this. I tend to use several different methods for getting hand poses and all that stuff correct. You can also compare to the left-hand target, and the Z should probably be the same, I think. Huh, maybe not. Huh. Hope if I put it in the correct spot. Nope. What did I grab? Where is my target? And my target here. Yeah. And target. What is my position? Position Z. Control copy. Yeah, there we go. And then I think our rotation on our Z should be the same but negative. Same but negative. So rotation Z should be whatever this one is. I think. And negative. There we go. Then position X should be the same but negative. So if we come up here and we take our position X, I believe if I slap that in there and then take away the negative, there we go. Alright, that works for now. I'm good with that. So now once you've got that, copy, component, play, and paste. Then for the next one, we're going to need our headset. Go ahead and put your headset on and hit play. Host. And then our headset target, our head target. If you come over to the scene, and if you look through your glasses, I tend to pull it out to make sure that the head is at the right height, because by default it's not, so that you can actually see the head in front of you, and then pull it down until the eyes are pretty much right in front of you like glasses, and then push it back until it looks like you're wearing glasses. I usually do this with one eye open. Just try to line it up to where it looks like the eye sockets of the IK are wearing glasses, and then pull it back to where it just disappears. Now, that'll rough it in. Play, then paste component values, and then zero out your X. Now, if you have trouble with certain models and you need to make your head disappear, some people will make the head disappear, but if you just go to your tracking anchor, you can actually change this. I think by default this is like 0.01, I think. So if I hit play here, sometimes you'll be able to see your eye sockets, and you can adjust this near plane. Typically I'll leave this at 0.07. Thereabouts is usually pretty good, but you can play with your value here. That way your head has a shadow if you're using shadows. If you just put your head on a different layer, like some tutorials will show you, you won't have a head shadow. You have to do some trickery. This is the easiest way to do it. So now let's network our Y offset and create our local rig. So let's go in and pull our rig in. Let's make sure we've got everything on here that we need for our local rig. I set this up on the network rig first, so because everything is pretty much going to be identical. Yeah, that'll work for now. We'll just add it later if we need to, but just duplicate it and then pull it out because we need this rig locally, and then you can just delete that. So let's open up our rig here, and let's go ahead and pull him into a child of our player controller, and then come to our IK. See the head target and everything is missing, but we just want the exact same targets because our local rig is going to be tracking to the exact same targets. And what should happen here is we should have identical two bodies tracking exactly the same, lined up exactly the same. So let's find out. So file, save, and see what happens. Yeah, so now we have two rigs and they're tracked and lined up identically. And you can see now when you hit play, you have a body visible before you host. There he is, tracked identical. And then when you hit host, we now have two bodies. So this guy's here. So if I come in here and I just see, I now have two. Okay. Now, my friends, now let's open up our network rig. Underneath our network rig, let's make a new empty. Create an empty, and we'll call this avatar. And we're just going to take this and we're going to drop it in there. This will make sense in a minute. We just need a avatar parent for this to work. File, save, and let's come back out. And now let's open up our script. Let's go into our network rig, and we're going to say, let's see what I want to say. Let's get a reference to our hardware rig, so, or our network rig. So let's call it, what do I want to call it? What do I want to call you? Say public game object network avatar transform. Yeah, why not? You can call it game object or whatever makes sense to you. It doesn't matter. This is just a reference to where our IK is on our network rig. And then if we own it, we're going to say network avatar transform dot setActive false. So what we're going to do is we're going to disable our avatar on our ghost for the local player. Hopefully that makes sense. So now if we go back into Unity and we open up our network rig and come in here, we have a reference for our avatar. So we don't want the parent, we want this. right here. File, save. So now host, if we come down to our network rig, what we should see is that it's disabled. So now you're only seeing the local representation. Problem with that is now we have to network our Y offset and our player scale, and that is where our parent comes in. So how do we do that? Well, let's come over to our hardware rig, our script, our hardware rig. And let's do some things. So let's get a reference to our avatar's transform. So let's say public transform avatar transform parent. Then let's come back to our network rig. And let's say network rig, avatar transform, or no, we need to get a reference first. Let's say our let's get a reference to the root parent object. So let's say public transform network avatar root. And then down here, let's say network avatar transform dot local position. What do I call that? Oh. Root. Root dot local position equals new vector 3 network avatar root dot local position dot x ik. Pause. We'll come back to this line. I forgot to do something. So let's go back into Unity. Let's come up to our rig. And then I need my Y offset, and that is on my local avatar. Come on, where are you? Character Y offset. So let's edit this script. And let's turn this into an static instance. So let's say public static, what is this called? Network character Y offset instance. And under coincidentally, we're going to have to do some changes here too. Void. Let's just say void start. And we're going to say instance equals this. That'll turn into a static. We can get rid of this. We don't need it anymore. And then we can get rid of mirror, and we can just turn this back into a mono behavior. Okay, so now let's go back into our network rig, and then we can say network avatar root dot local position equals new vector 3 network avatar root dot local position dot x, and then we can say network network character. Did I make you public? Okay, come back over to your network character Y offset, and let's just get rid of this namespace so that we can actually access this static. Quick trick, if you highlight all, Control K, Control F, that'll fix the formatting. Now back over to our network rig, and then we should be able to access that. So let's go network character Y offset. Did I forget something? I did. I need to access that float. So now let's go back over here, and let's say public float new Y offset. Yep, and then down here, you know what, we're going to replace this because this is the one that comes with BNG. CompuGenius actually came up with a method quite a while ago that we're going to use here instead. So what this will do, this will fix the floating feet effect. So now we can just add our float under that. What he's doing is he's getting the actual character controller in the parent and then doing his measurements off of that, rather than just using a parent object. So now we can say new Y offset equals transform dot local position dot Y. Yeah, which I already had in there. So I copied and pasted that right here. So we're going to store this here. Now come back over to your network rig, and then we can grab that float dot new dot instance dot new Y offset. Do I want to store that? Let me think. Probably. Yeah, so up here, let's cache that. Let's cache it. So let's go float IKY offset. And then here we'll say, if it's owned, we'll say IKY offset equals network character Y offset dot I'm all over the place this morning. Let's store this. Let's say network character Y offset dot instance. There we go. So let's cache that, and then come down here, and then we can say IK Y offset dot new Y offset. And network avatar root dot local position dot z. Okay. So now we're actually going to be calculating our Y offset on our local rig and then sending that to our network rig. So now, how do we handle our player scaling? Same thing, pretty much. We're just going to get our root and we're going to make it equal our network avatars, our hardware avatar scale. So let's go back here. Let's see. So let's come to the top and let's get a reference to our transform of our hardware rig. So let's say it'll make sense in a minute. Sometimes I have a hard time talking. Let's come back down into our, oops, let's change this into an else if. Let's say hardware avatar transform equals hardware rig dot instance. Actually, I'm already storing that, so I can just say hardware rig dot avatar transform parent. Okay. Then if we come back down into our update rig transforms, we can then say if network avatar root local scale is not equal hardware rig. Let's say hardware avatar transform dot local scale. Say network avatar root dot local scale equals avatar transform dot local scale. Now, if you remember, the way this works is we're going to get this scale from our hardware rig, which is going to change our parent transform of our avatar. If we go back into Unity, if you remember correctly on our rig, we have a transform that is handling, let's see, not sure why I've got two there, but I'm going to remove it. I don't need that. Let's put this in some kind of order. Let's pull this up. So we have this network transform here that had this. This was networking our transforms scale and position and rotation. So let's just change that to be our avatar. So now when you change your local avatar, it's going to change this transform, and then that will get networked across. Hopefully that makes sense. We're letting the network transform handling our scaling and our Y offset for us when it changes. Yeah, we're probably going to want to change this to something like 0.001. Scale will be when you do it, client to server. Okay, file, save. What am I missing? So now let's come up to our controller, come down to our hardware rig. See, we need our avatar transform parent. Well, that's going to be our actual rig. Okay. See, that's where our Y offset is stored and our player scaling is stored. Yeah. And then let's open this up, go into our network rig. Need my network avatar root, which is this. And this will get found automatically. Okay, so now file, save. Let's make sure nothing blew up. Okay, file, save, file, build and run. Network player scale. Okay, we no longer need that. So let's go into our, where do I have that? Let's find it. Network player scale. Let's open that up. This no longer needs to be a network behavior, so we can get rid of this using mirror. Can turn this back into a mono behavior. Control save. We can get rid of all this. No longer need it. And we don't need this, and we don't need this. Get rid of that. Okay, now let's fix our formatting. Okay, Control F, Control save. Turns it back into a mono behavior. That should fix that. Let's go back in here. Let's go find our prefab again. Assets, prefabs. Let's pull him up. If you go down to our avatar, we no longer need this. We can remove it. And we no longer need this. So let's remove that. We're going to be handling that locally and then pushing those changes. So the only thing you should have on here right now is your IK and your animator. File save. So now, let's to make sure that's working. Let's go into our network rig. Find it. This line right here, NetworkAvatarTransform.SetActive false. Let's do that. That way it doesn't disable. Yep. Okay. Let's check the scale. So if we come over here, we can see that we got a negative Y offset and our scale is 1. So let's come down to our avatar. Avatar. See how we have a negative 0.5. Then we have a negative 0.5. Wonder why that's set like that. That is 0. There we go. Okay, so we need to change that back to 0. But you can see that it's now networking. This is going to network now. So we're just sending that offset and that scale. So if I actually, see if it'll let me put my headset on. That's not going to let me do it. So let's just fix that real quick. Let's go in here. Come down to your avatar and let's set this to 0. Okay. I'll save, come back out, hit play with my headset on. Host, see what we got in the scene. Okay. I have both bodies here. So if I want to make myself really tiny, see I now have 2 really tiny bodies. I stand up. Okay, so that's getting past our network rig correctly. So now, let's do a build and see what happens. Video's going kind of long. Might split this up. Oh, what's our problem now? Okay, sorry about that. That was something completely unrelated to what we're doing. It was just something that I was building within this project. So fixed that. Now where were we? Let's save it. Let's test it out before we put our headset on. Let's just build it and run it. host. Client. Okay, so let's pull up our little game here. You see now we have a networked Y offset, and we should see the player scale too when we get our headset on. So now let's just close this. Play. Client. That little guy over here. Okay. Sit down, I should see my scale. It's now networked. Okay. If anybody knows why, when you switch back and forth doing this, the little guy floats up in the air. It's kind of annoying, but I've not really looked into why he does that. But if I come back over here, see him. Oh. Okay. Let's this out, and then let's come back up to our XR rig, up to our player controller. Into our models left, models right, custom hand, and then we'll just disable those. Okay, so in this one we've set up our local rig, disabled our local ghost, networked our Y offset and our player scale. Hopefully you found this informative. I'm going to end this one now because it's gone a lot longer than what I thought it was going to take. Have a good day.